And welcome to the Physician Assistant Education Association Education Forum Proposal Submission webinar. I am Darwin Brown, your moderator, and I'll introduce our next colleague, Elena.
Hi, this is Elena Mann. I'm from Northwestern University, and I'm the Clinical Ed Director here. Pat?
Hi, I'm Pat Kennymore. I'm the Associate Director of the PA program at Oregon Health and Science University.
Thank you, Pat and Elena. Glad to have you on board. Well, you're here listening to this webinar because hopefully you have interest in submitting a application or at least a submission to be considered for a proposal to participate in the 2017 forum, which will be in Denver, Colorado this year, October 26th to the 28th. This is a highly competitive selection process, and hopefully by listening to the webinar, we'll provide you with some information and insights and answer some questions you might have to make this process easier for you. First thing we want to talk about are the dates. There are a couple of important dates. The submission site is currently open, and it will close at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on April the 3rd. The Conference Council will evaluate the proposals and in early May, and you can anticipate hearing back from the Conference Council sometime in late May to early June on acceptance or not acceptance to the forum. There's a couple of the dates that describe when the educational sessions occur earlier in the week and the poster sessions on that Friday and Saturday. Elena?
Right, so now we'd like to bring your attention to the website so you can view the submission guidelines. So if you go to the PAEA online org Education Forum website, you'll see in that middle section listed the proposal guidelines. And there are a number of different types of formats for you to choose from this year. It's important for you to take a look at your ideas and figure out which format might best suit what type of idea you want to get across. A couple of the things that you want to pay attention to are the submission guidelines, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail when we describe each of the formats. And also the second thing would be that you can be a part of or accepted to be a part of 2 presentations, but you can only be the lead on one of the presentations. So again, as the lead, serving as the lead or the main submitter or the contact for just one presentation, but you can be a co-presenter on a second. Now this does exclude posters and research briefs. In addition, the submission software will allow you only to submit 3 presentations. If you would like to submit more than that, we advise that you contact the PAEA to open up some more options for you. So now going on to considerations. So now you have your idea and you want to submit. There are a couple things you want to think about. First is that this is a pretty stringent review process. It is a peer-reviewed process, which we'll describe below in further detail. And you should consider your target audience. So are you going to be targeting program directors, new faculty, admissions people? So think about what your target audience will be, and that will help shape your idea. Consider whether you're looking at experienced or novice faculty as your audience. This, again, will help kind of guide you in formulating your idea, and whether you want to make it a more novel approach or you want to focus on something at a higher level. And then consider innovative topics. This year, Pat will talk about some of the poster options, but we're always looking for educational innovation. And if you have a topic that you find innovative but also really popular at this time, think about whether your approach is novel, and that will help your idea stand out in the proposal process. The review process itself is run by the Conference Council. We have the Research Council, and we also have conference proposal reviewers that will be looking at the proposals. We work in 3-person teams, which usually has a lead depending on the type of format. So the Conference Council would serve leads on mainly the other formats, while the Research Council might take the lead on the research posters. The teams are divided by format type, so each team only reviews those certain formats for that cycle. And then we have format rubrics, which are based on the submission criteria. So if you go back to that link that we talked about earlier and read carefully through the submission process, you'll see at the very end of each of the formats are some submission guidelines. And we tend to follow those when we're looking at our rubrics. And we're bringing that up for you right there. So those are the submission criteria. So do read through this really carefully, because that's what we use to kind of grade and assess the proposals we receive. Like I said, each proposal is individually rated by 3 separate people, and then the reviewers are blinded to each other's scores. And so this is important. So when we take a look at how a proposal scored, we aren't comparing, we aren't using each other's scores to create bias. So it's a nice process in that way. So now I'm going to turn it over to Pat, and she's going to go more into the posters and research briefs.
Yeah, thanks, Elena. So posters are a popular portion of the annual conference, and we all love to share our experiences in PA education. The proposal guidelines are linked on this webinar, and if you go look at them this year, you will find that there's something new in the offerings. For quite some time, our posters have been focused on educational research with a requirement of data to allow them to be shown at the conference. Because we have so many educators doing creative things, there's been a big interest in including educational innovation in our poster section. So this year you will see that there are actually 2 different types of posters that you can submit your work to. One is the traditional educational research. This particular poster does require original research with data collection and analysis for acceptance at the conference. But new this year is an educational innovation section, which will allow educators to share the exciting things that they're doing that are educationally based, such as classroom activities, clinical activities, or community-based activities that are a little bit more on the creative problem-solving end of education that may not rise to the level of rigor required for educational research. So we're pretty excited about being able to offer this new track for our posters. Do keep in mind that there is an expectation that some level of evaluation must take place with these, and that can be Likert scale evaluations from students or something that demonstrates that there's been some level of evaluation, but not to the level of rigor required for educational research. So we're pretty excited about this new poster track that we're offering, and we're looking forward to seeing the cool things that people come up with to share with colleagues. So in addition to posters, we also continue with our traditional research briefs section of the forum, and this is educational research that is done, and the guidelines, you can see the proposal guidelines listed on the website. This is research that is at the more formal level. These, if accepted, are presented in a verbal format at the forum and do have high expectations for rigor. So the proposal criteria are listed there. This is very much the same as what has been done in previous sessions. Elena?
Great. So now we're going to go through some of the other formats, and these please note that each of these are 50 minutes in length, with the exception of workshops, which are 80 minutes in length. So you can find these descriptions listed again on the website, and the criteria listed there as well. I thought I'd walk through each of these though and just give you some examples of kind of what we expect with these presentations. So the Spotlight presentation is your typical straight lecture format. Usually it's about 30 to 40 minutes of straight presentation, and it's a great way to give out information maybe about a specific topic or something that you're doing in your program or an observed experience that you can share. And then the last 10 to 15 minutes is dedicated to some Q&A. So again, more your traditional lecture, which we're pretty much probably the most comfortable with. The second option that you have is the panel presentation, and this is a chance to give different, I guess, varying views and opinions on a specific issue. And the one thing to note about this presentation is that you're required to disclose the panel members' experience, and this is something that is looked at when we're reviewing the proposal, is are the presenters of the panel, do they have enough experience to speak intelligently on that topic? So this is a chance to get 3 or 4 people, the minimum is 3 and the maximum is 5, to talk about a specific topic and give some information. And again, it's more of a straight presentation with some time at the end for Q&A. Now, if you have a topic that you'd like to brainstorm about, this is the focus discussion should be the one that you're aiming at. And this is where you have the majority of time dedicated for small group discussion. So these are the presentations that are usually held in roundtables. You give a little bit of background about the topic, and then you share ideas for the remaining part of the group. And at the end of the session, you wrap up and hopefully share some of the solutions or information that has been kind of discussed throughout the conversation. So it's a nice way to kind of get your foot in the door, come up with some solutions to your own problems, you know, at your programs, or just open up a dialogue for specific ideas. And then the last topic I'll talk about is the workshop. And this is a longer or extended version. It's 80 total minutes. And one of the hours, or so 60 minutes of this presentation should involve some type of active participation. So you probably will note that the time frames of these have kind of changed over the last couple of years, but we've settled on this 80-minute format at this point in time. And so usually you have about 20 minutes of didactic followed by, again, some type of application of the topic. And some of the examples that you will see noted are areas such as writing objectives, maybe using technology, those types of topics. Okay. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Darwin, and he can talk about the review.
Thanks, Elena. So the Conference Council will develop a subcommittee of folks who will meet in early May after the proposals have been received that will then make evaluations and help to actually create the schedule. They'll look at overall composite scores from the review teams, make decisions on duplicative submissions essentially on as far as topics go, and mix and match to try to create the best well-rounded form possible. Submitters will receive one of 3 notifications. Either their proposal was accepted as is, it was accepted but with modifications, or it was not accepted at all. If you receive an accept with modifications, the modifications are an expectation from the Conference Council that you'll make some changes. That might be a title change, might be a slight focus or a refocus of your presentation to make it more narrow or more specific, or to help broaden a topic that maybe we have multiple submissions on already. And so those are an expectation from the Conference Council that those modifications are an expectation that to be accepted, you have to make those modifications. And do not accept is not, again, a reflection on you as having a poor presentation or a poor idea. Competition is keen, and there's just never enough space to get everybody involved in the forum. And I think trying to limit our numbers somewhat opens up other opportunities for more folks to present at the forum in the future. So please don't get disheartened, and if you think it's a reasonable proposal, please submit it in the following year. The goal overall is really to find balance in both topics and in the schedule itself, so we don't have multiple topics with the same idea or direction on the conference at the same time that might be redundant, and to provide opportunities where folks can find a sequence or quasi-track of what they want to follow, with being like academic side or the clinical side, and hit as many topics as is available to them. Next, we're going to move on to what to do or where to go to submit, and I think Pat is going to take this.
Yeah. So the submission link is there on the website or on the webinar slide. It's also easily visible on the forum website. This is a new system this year, so those of you who have been through this process before will need to create a new account, even though you may have done so in the past. Everyone submitting this year will need to create a new account. There are also some new options for saving your submission that allow a maximum amount of flexibility. And you can submit something and choose to save it and then work on it between now and the time of the submission deadline. If you feel like you've completed your submission, you can choose to publish it. But you can also unpublish it if you decide you want to make some changes to it before the submission deadline. You can also choose to withdraw it altogether if you change your mind about submitting. So you have a significant amount of flexibility to work on your project up until the deadline of April the 3rd. At that point, everything must be published in order for PAEA to see it. So if you've been working on something in an unpublished process, even if you saved it, it will not be visible to PAEA unless you submit it. So very important, before the deadline, make sure anything that you want to put forward you've actually published. Nothing will be seen by PAEA staff until after the deadline, and at that point the work will begin on reviewing all of the submissions that we've received. Elena?
Right, so we thought we'd kind of wrap things up by giving you some tips. And many of these may seem self-explanatory, but you'd be surprised at how often we pick up some of these errors. So the first thing is, just as we tell our students, follow directions. So if you go into, like I said before, if you go into each of the different types of formats, there are explicit directions on what we're looking for. So you want to double check and make sure that you've included objectives and that you've included a timeline if indicated, followed the word counts, all of those different pieces of the puzzle to make sure that you're not getting marked off for just small errors or grammatical errors. So make sure that you do go through there. Choose the correct format, and this actually sounds easier than it is. Sometimes you have a great idea and you don't realize that it would lend itself more to maybe a focused discussion or a spotlight. And so when we look at the proposals, we want to make sure that we're matching the amount of content that you want to cover within that right format. And that's one pitfall that we see often, is that there's too much information to share within a focused discussion. Maybe it would be more suited for a workshop. Or maybe the idea isn't as developed as it should be, and maybe it would work better in like a brainstorming session. So those are kind of the pieces that we see that could be improved. So make sure you're looking at the correct format. Maybe it's a poster or research brief that's better, it's better suited for that avenue. Use your colleagues. You know, we all work with experienced colleagues for the most part, and reach out and have someone else proofread your submission. A lot of times we're kind of caught in our own bubble and we read the same, you know, we read our work and we don't find errors. But if you have someone external just taking a quick peek and making sure it's organized, it matches up with the objectives, sometimes that's all you need. So we would recommend having at least one person or even several people take a look at your submission and give you some feedback. Don't forget to publish your submission. So in the software system, you can save it, but you also have to hit that last button to publish it, or it won't be accepted. So do remember to go back in, and as Pat was saying, there's maximum flexibility there. So even if you make an error, you can go back and unpublish it. But in order for us to receive it, you have to hit that publish button. And then finally, we expect our students to utilize evidence-based medicine and cite appropriately. So we also expect the same out of our faculty. So make sure that you're double-checking your style, that you're not losing points on those areas, and make sure that you're referencing up-to-date information in support of your proposal. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Darwin to wrap things up.
Thanks, Elena. Just a quick reminder about the important dates again. The deadline for submission is April 3rd at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So those who are in the West Coast, keep that in mind, please. That gets to be early in the morning or at least early afternoon for you all. And the dates of the forum itself, again, if you have significant family plans during those dates and are not able to attend the forum, give some consideration of why you would submit in the first place. Although we'll take all comers, if you're unable to attend the forum, you might want to consider that as a difficult option. We've covered a lot of material. If you have further questions that were not answered by the webinar or on the documentation that's on the PAEA website, please email your questions to forum@paeaonline.org, and you'll receive at least a notification within 24 hours and hopefully a response shortly thereafter to your question you may have. And this would also include if you have interest in submitting more than 3 proposals. This would be the place you want to at least make that suggestion, and they'll respond to you relatively quickly with instructions and information about those issues. Hey, I would like to thank those who participate in the process, certainly the PAEA Conference Council and my colleagues today, Elena Min and Pat Kenny Moore. I'd also like to give a shout out to Cheryl Vermont and Renee Despot, both PAEA staff who run the PAEA Forum each year and keep us on track and do all the hard work behind the scenes. It's a pleasure. We look forward to reading your submissions. We wish you all best of luck in having those submissions submitted, and hope you'll find this webinar useful in your quest. It's been a pleasure. Take care and good luck to you all. Goodbye.